Guys, this is Kristen. I just wanted to show you a little bit about raw file processing and what I do to process my raw files. So here is my image right here. The extension, it ends in NEF, which is basically just the format for a Nikon raw file. I'm going to drag it into Photoshop. I use CS5. I know a lot of you use Elements and Corel and other programs. I've been using Photoshop for years and I like it very much. So it automatically defaults to open with my Camera Raw software, which is for my Nikon. I use a Nikon D7000 and that's what software it uses. So I purposely picked a really overexposed picture just to show the benefits of shooting RAW versus JPEG. The first thing I'm going to do, and the most important, is adjust the exposure. So here's the exposure slider. I'm going to slide it all the way towards the black, the left side, to get a better exposure. And there we go. The next slider is for recovery. That adds a little bit more darkness into the highlights. I'm going to use a little bit there. And with fill light's useful when you have a photo like this one where the subject is backlit and she has some shadow on her face. Fill light just adds a little extra light onto her face. Below that we have the black slider. I always bump up the blacks a little bit. I like strong, solid blacks in my pictures, so I always add a little bit of that. Then there's brightness. Brightness is probably okay where it's at. Contrast, definitely for this image I'm going to add some contrast. And I usually just go back and make little adjustments as I go along. Saturation just kind of like makes your color saturation brighter. I'm going to add a little of that. Clarity I'm not going to touch on here because there's not a lot of grain and I only usually use the clarity slider when I have an issue with too much grain. There's a whole bunch of little icons up here that you can use, you know, for different purposes. This is the tone curves. Usually I do most of this stuff after I open it with Photoshop, but you know, you can do it either way. Here, sharpening, which I'm not going to touch. The noise reduction, that's another thing you use when you have too much grain and you want to kind of get it to be a little less grainy but still maintain the crispness and quality of the image. And again, you can go through all these and see maybe if you want to play around with, this is specific color adjustments, lens correction, you can add grain on here, all kinds of different stuff. As for up here, this toolbar, you can do cropping, straightening, sample colors, balance the whites, all that stuff. I usually do the majority of those things in Photoshop, but what I aim to get right in here is the exposure, because that's, you know, the most important. If I had shot this as a JPEG and not a RAW file, I probably would have had to trash it because I wouldn't have been able to add in, you know, the picture, basically. It was completely, here's the preview, it was completely blown out, overexposed, but now, because I shot in RAW, it has all the information there. All I need to do is make the right adjustments. So from there I would hit open image, and that is going to open in Photoshop. And from here I would do all my Photoshop adjustments, and then I'll show you the finished image after I photoshopped it. So this is what it ended up being. It was a really, you know, a really great shot of her, and luckily I shot in RAW. So those are the benefits to shooting RAW, or else I would have had to trash it. So I hope that helps all of you guys, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.